The booster course pass for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was quite the success, and once again, we're looking at all changes and differences made for the returning courses in Wave 1 of the DLC. The third race of the Lucky Cat Cup is GBA Sky Garden. It's a race amidst the heavens, featuring a cobblestone path through cloud platforms, giant beanstalks all around, interwoven vine bridges, an assortment of flowers, and even a lone elevated toad house. So how does the most recent update differ from past installments? Let's find out. Not to be confused with Cloudtop Cruise, which shares the same name as this track in several languages. Sky Garden in Mario Kart Super Circuit was renowned for its numerous shortcut opportunities, including those with high risk versus reward conditions. The course was altered minimally for DS, with streamlined texturing and only a few tweaks at jump spots. But for Tour's renovation, the design was reimagined with major modifications to its bends and added elevation details, nearly rendering it unrecognizable other than its theming. Shortcuts were changed considerably, and elements were combined or replaced with new elements. This same model was used for Switch, presenting a few visual enhancements, and many other differences could be found between all versions. Let's start with the gameplay changes. Both path edges and outer cloud lining were smoothed out a bit for DS. But for Tour, the depth of the cloud rolls had varying impact, such as being an off-road surface, leading out of bounds, or just functioning as a barrier. All vines penetrating the platforms were moved to isolated clouds, and planters for the added course banner, which we'll address later, could be hit. At the first gap in DS, the ramp on the main path became a boosted ramp, and the other at the cloudy shortcut became a standard sloped ramp. This shortcut was given an extended cloud path to assure a safe landing, too. The gap and ramps were completely removed for Tour, with the path alignment adjusted to aim a little more to the south. Meanwhile, the cloudy shortcut was transformed into a less impactful dual leaf shortcut, not requiring a boost item to clear. Bouncing off these leaves would trigger tricks or jump boosts. The northwest bends were softened significantly into a single curve. For DS, the left ramp of the 2 off-road was pushed to the right and transformed into a boosted ramp. Along with the first vine bridge, both of these ramps were combined for the revamp into a fully straightened path with a truncated bridge supporting a tour-style ramp, which is missing in 8 Deluxe, onto a mushroom trampoline. Just how strong are these vines? The corner immediately after welcomed a cut into a new dirt edge with a boost item, and flowering bushes were placed along the opposite side. The following bends leading northeast were simplified into a gentle curve with a new vine bridge crossing the separated cloud. This led to flower planters lining some fencing at the hairpin bend. The curve was adjusted to run north-south, canceling the kink in the road as a result. Furthermore, the rainbow block barriers here and beyond were doubled up originally, but they became single-layered in DS and wiped out for the remake. And the final vine bridge was brought closer to the hairpin bend, with the path extending further south than before. Replacing the cloud-hopping shortcut was a cut through a squat, split beanstalk at the highest elevation on the path, with a smaller vine serving as railing leading up to it. The turning point after the bridge became another hairpin bend, exiting northward with no further bends. In the DS version, the final ramp just before the finish line became a boosted ramp. But for Tour, this was augmented into a great divide with a glide ramp for crossing it. For Switch, different unintentional shortcuts across cloud platforms for the whole course are possible now. We'd say that the sky's the limit, but we're already there. There are a considerable number of aesthetic changes too, albeit not rotated. The minimap was modified to match the drastic transformation of the course path and Tour, with the representation of the leaf shortcut seen in the Switch version. Other than that, there are the obvious general lighting, texture, and mild coloration differences also, rather than the limited parallax scrolling background from the original. DS featured a proper sky dome with some individual assets. The clouds above thinned out, and those below the track seemed distinctively whiter, and the Luigi blimp from GBA Luigi Circuit was rendered in front of the upper clouds this time, sporting a new design. In Tour, background clouds became modeled and spread all over, with massive 3D beanstalks growing all around, fewer in total, wrapped by smaller vines and topped with cumulus clouds. Viewable from the highest point, the sun appeared. The cloud bed was broken up into smaller clouds, with no vines piercing through them. And there were not one but 2 blimps. Instead of Luigi, they had the Tour logo like that seen in Singapore Speedway, The sun vanished again in 8 Deluxe, and the blimps were replaced by an entire airship armada, like in Cloud Top Cruise, surrounding the course. And warp pipes were installed on some isolated clouds all around. In Super Circuit, large stones were in groups everywhere that sometimes held coins. These stones were omitted from the remade pattern, not just to optimize textures, but also because coins didn't appear in the DS title. Little rolls on the off-road clouds vanished too. Even vine bridges were recreated with more consistency in the weaving. The mobile version of the road swapped the round stones with fan to cobblestone. This in turn was updated for Switch to a more scalloped terracotta material, with green in the spaces between the stones and blades of grass pushing through. What's more intriguing is that the surfaces of the cloud rolls along the roadside now appear to flow inward. Neat! Vine bridges wrapped around wooden anchors and sprouted leaves also. And spectators, all Koopa Paratroopas, watched the race from the cloud edges. Are we really surprised to find little birds here too? At the starting line, the 40x4 black and white checks decreased to 15x3, and the starting grid made of cracks and larger stones disappeared. A course banner finally was created for Tour, featuring the classic font in yellow on brown background with a red border, held by vines growing out of box planters. The starting line checks increased to 19x3 in red, orange, and white, while the starting grid returned in standard form, painted white. At the first shortcut, the giant leaves pulse more softly now, as does the mushroom trampoline, matching those in Wii Mushroom Gorge. Far off to the right, a group of mushroom platforms can be seen, with one even below the track. The area just ahead was transformed into the course's namesake for mobile, featuring flowers joining the flowering bushes, all on grass with soil edges. Universally, all flowers, including those on bushes, are of different varieties and colors in 8 Deluxe, and the same applies to the grass clumps. But more blades at the start of this sector now grow. And ever since Tour, the split vine marking the shortcut also has featured smaller clouds, with the highest of them supporting a red toad house. Wait, where are the toads? The only notable auditory change is the presence of wind chimes in the opening in the latest version. Where are they even coming from? What's more of a wonder is the music for Sky Garden. In general, it could classify as an inspirational pop rock, but some versions lean in a more specific genre. All seem to have bright brass, horns, and standard percussion, with synth in all but the most recent arrangement. The original has a mixture of traditional and digital instruments, namely square waves and a sawtooth bass, as we've grown accustomed to hearing with GBA tracks, giving that characteristic chiptune hybrid sound. That's a motivational start. The DS arrangement sounds much like the source, but it uses the game's sound font. All of the digital instruments were replaced with other types of synths. The sawtooth melody was given some humanized articulations, as well as fade and vibrato at the ends of phrases. Crash cymbals were used a bit more at the end of the B section, and the drum fills transitioning between sections were altered, emphasizing with rests more than repetitious strikes. However, the snare hits in the transition into the C section were turned into a crescendo, and the counterpoint here was subdued and played by just one instrument. It works well enough. Tour's arrangement transformed the piece almost as much as the course itself. The intro started with mute guitar tremolo, paced like the following arpeggios, and the A section melody reverted to a square lead, only brighter with mild delay. The kick drum became a little spicier throughout this time, and the drum fills reverted to their original executions, but tom-toms were included in the transition into the B section. Here, the melody became a different square lead with modulation effects, joined by harmony. The crescendo was replaced with a short riser effect atop a different synth counterpoint reflective of the new flow of the following C section, electronic dance style. A tambourine blended with the altered percussion. The melody changed to yet another square lead, with fade and vibrato again, supported by soft distortion guitar in the background. And the counterpoint was played by two instruments once again. That gets us pumped! The switch arrangement has reimagined flavor, with most synth substituted with either traditional instruments or electric guitar types. More specifically, the mute guitar in the intro covers the personalized arpeggios, ditching the tremolo. Piano chording debuts here too. The A section melody now is played by saxophone, with a softer, funkier synth bolstering it, and the counterpoint in the later part differs significantly. Dual guitars, overdriven and distortion, serve as the B section melody and harmony. Only some notes of this counterpoint were adjusted. Because of the missing synth, the C section sounds a bit less like dance music, but the percussion retains that flow, only with open hi-hat replacing the tambourine. The melody here is saxophone this time, with another sax extending the harmony line. Meanwhile, the synth counterpoint is completely gone, but the horn counterpoint was altered with a rather odd ending set of notes. This all leads to what is now identical to the intro. Though the feeling may be different, this is still a really uplifting theme. And that's about it for all changes we found in GBA Sky Garden. While the track plays well enough for a streamlined racing experience, we can't help but to feel this transformation was not faithful to the source material, instead only being inspired by it. The update dampened the thrill for experts and reduced the rewarding options that the original had. But what do you think? Have you found any notable changes that we missed? Let us know in the comments below. And of course, stay tuned to GameXplain for more coverage of the Booster Course Pass for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and other things Nintendo too. Thanks for watching. Until next time, ciao.